In this video, I'm going to be ranking every single DLC creature in Ark from worst to best. These are going to be the creatures from Ark Survival Evolved and Ascended. Also, this is going to be from a PvE player's perspective, so it's not a PvP list. But anyway, let's get into it. At number 55 in last place is the Lamprey. This is like the leech for Aberration, and it doesn't really do too much. You can tame it with a fish basket. It does have one use though, and it actually like makes you resistant to the radiation, but it's really annoying to do, and I've honestly don't really use it that much, so gonna be in last place. And at number 54 we have the Vulture. This one is a shoulder pet, and it can attack off your shoulder, but also every map that has a like the Vulture usually has a Jerboa, which I'd way rather use that one because it actually tells me what weather events are going to be happening. So which is going to be pretty low. And then at number 53 we have the Noglin. This one I imagine is probably really good in PvP, but in PvE it's pretty much useless, and it's insanely hard to tame. So there's not really much reason to actually get this thing. At number 52 is the Fenrir. It kind of sucks that this one has to be so low, but if you could get it mid-game, I feel like this one would actually be pretty useful, as it can basically is like a refrigerator in its inventory, and you could even put stuff you can't normally put in refrigerators, like nameless venom and stuff like that. It also has the like howl that gives it like an ice around its body that gives it resistance, and it's decently strong, and it has a pack bonus. But the problem is you have to basically defeat the final boss of Fjordur, meaning you get this thing insanely late game, and that late in the game you don't need this thing at all, and makes it pretty much useless, which really sucks. Number 51 is the Mega Chelon. This is a really cool creature, I will admit. You could build on the back of it. It's got like bubble columns that give you air and stuff, but this one's like on Genesis Part 1. I think you can find it on Lost Island and Fjordur too, but it's not really that useful, especially for how hard it is to tame. It's one of the hardest creatures to tame in the game, and I feel like I can only get it really late game, and by then I don't really want to have to set up a base on this thing or anything because I already have somewhere. I don't know, I just don't find this one super useful. At number 50 is the Enforcer. This one you have to build on Extinction and can be decent early game, I guess, but I don't really find myself using it too much. It can like teleport and climb up walls, which I think is cool, and it does like bonus damage to corrupted creatures, but I just think there's a lot better creatures on the list. And at number 49 is the Lymantria. This one is like the early game flyer on Scorched Earth and can just be okay. It doesn't really have much stamina or weight, so it's not really the greatest for anything, and lots of people use it to get wyvern eggs, which can be a pretty decent use for it, but it's still not the greatest, so it's going to be pretty low on the list. And number 48 is another Scorched Earth creature, the Thorny Dragon. This one can be used to get wood on Scorched Earth, which is actually pretty useful, but the thing is Scorched Earth also has the chainsaw, which is way better than the Thorny Dragon. So I feel like this is just a good early game wood harvester, but once you get past the early game, you don't really need it anymore. Number 47 is the Basilisk. This one's probably better in PvP, but this is PvE, and the Basilisk is not really that useful for pretty much anything, and it is really annoying to tame, but it is really strong, and I feel like you could use it to kill some stuff, so it's just okay. Number 46 is the Astrocetus. This one is kind of the same reason for the Basilisk. It has some really cool abilities, but they're only useful in PvP. In PvE, this thing pretty much has no use at all, but it is really cool. It's a flying whale that can like go into hyperspeed. Like, that's pretty dope. So I guess 46 is the highest I can put it. Number 45 is the Amargasaurus. All three of these have literally the same exact reason. The Amargasaurus also has abilities oriented towards PvP with like the spikes and stuff, meaning it's not really that useful in PvE, and also it's kind of hard to tame, so you have to go out of your way to use a tame that pretty much doesn't do anything in PvE. And number 44 is the Phoenix. I wish I could put this one higher, but it honestly isn't that useful, mainly because first off, you can't really find it. They're super rare. I've only seen one of them, and I've been playing this game for 7 years before the Phoenix came out, so it's been quite a while, and I've only seen one. Also, once you do go through the kind of annoying taming process, it's not the hardest thing to tame in the world, but it still is kind of annoying. You do get it, and I feel like by the time you have this thing, it's already really the late game. You have stuff like wyverns and all that stuff, so you don't really need the Phoenix, which is kind of just a worse version of the wyvern or whatever. It can smelt things in its inventory and poops out silica pearls, but I don't think those abilities make it any more worth it. At 43, I have the Ferox. This one might be controversial, but I honestly don't find this one that useful. I mean, first off, every time you want to use it and it's like actual powerful mode, you have to feed it element, which isn't exactly a resource I want to be giving up every time I want to have to attack something. And overall, it's just not that strong for how like annoying it is to tame, especially with needing element to get it. And after that, we have the Jerboa. This one is pretty good. It's definitely the best of the Scorched Earth shoulder pets. It tells you when weather events are happening, but other than that, it's not the best thing in the world, but I'm going to put it here. It's definitely more useful than all the other creatures in the list, especially for PvE, because it'll tell you when weather events are happening, and you can have it on your shoulder at all times. After that, number 41 is the Roll Rat. This is like the only wood gatherer you can get on Aberration, which for that, it's pretty useful. You don't have the chainsaw on Aberration, so this is the only alternative to get wood, which makes it pretty useful, but on all other maps, it's not really that useful. Number 40 is the Rock Golem. This one also might be controversial, but in PvE, I just don't see there being that much reasons to tame this thing, because you need like cannonballs to knock it out. You can use rocket launchers, but it's not really as good of a method. But overall, I mean, it's pretty strong, but I feel like I'd rather use wyverns or something to go around and kill things. And then we have the shoulder pets. I'm going to have all the shoulder pets ranked in the same area. I'm just going to be ranking which ones I like now. And the first one at 39 is the Glowtail. My least favorite of the shoulder pets, even though I do like all of them, and the Glowtail is pretty cool. After that, we have the Featherlight at 38. I like the Featherlight quite a bit. And then at number 37 is the Bulb Dog. The Bulb Dog's iconic, and I think it's pretty cool. But my favorite shoulder pet is easily the Shinehorn. This one is just dope. It's adorable, and it's the best shoulder pet, or the best light pet, not shoulder pet. And at number 35 is the Desert Titan, and this is also where I'm going to rank all of the Titans. I didn't even realize that the shoulder pet and those things were like put together. I didn't group them right next to each other, but I did. Anyway, yeah, so the Titans, they basically have one main use, and that's fighting the King Titan. Other than that, you don't really need them for anything, and of course, they only last for 24 hours before they disappear, so you only get them for a short amount of time. But of course, they are really useful for that King Titan fight, and the King Titan fight's a pretty integral part of the game, so that is pretty useful. I think in the middle here at like 35, I think is a good spot for them. First, starting it off with the Desert Titan. This one I think is pretty cool. Obviously it can fly, but for the King Titan fight, I think it's the least useful for that fight specifically, even though I do like the giant platform that's floating in the sky. You can kind of make a sky base out of it. And then that 34 is the Forest Titan. I think this one's definitely better than the Desert Titan because it is stronger. And of course you can use it way more in that fight. But I think my favorite out of all the Titans is the Ice Titan. This one is the most maneuverable. It can jump around. It's got the Ice Breath. It's the strongest, so it's definitely the best one and coolest looking one. At number 32 is the Gas Bags. This is one I haven't really used a ton, at least not as much as other people have, but I definitely do see the benefits of it, and that's why I'm ranking it as high as I have, even though I feel like some people might even rank it a bit higher. The reason it's so good is not because of the giant fart bubbles you can make and fly in the sky, but mainly because it has an insane amount of weight. You can carry tons of stuff with this thing and move them around the map, making it super useful. Number 31 is the Dinopithecus. It's like a giant monkey. You can run around, kill stuff, pretty good in caves. A lot of stuff will ignore you because it's seen as a Rex for some reason, so this one is a pretty good one overall. And number 30 is the Fjord Hawk. This one is a really good shoulder pet, as it basically, as soon as you die, it'll bring your stuff to you, so you just instantly get it back. I mean, that's super useful. You can also use it to cheese getting wyverns by basically just stealing the eggs, dying, and then having it come back to you, so it's pretty good. Number 39 is the Velonosaur. This is basically just a dinosaur that can shoot needles out of its face, so it's like a turret. I mean, that's really cool, and it's really powerful too. So you can use it to kill all kinds of stuff, especially in the early game on Extinction, or not early game, maybe I'd say more like mid game, but this thing is pretty useful and pretty powerful. Number 28 is the Morellatops. This is probably one of my favorite starter tames, especially on Scorched Earth, as it is really quick, can haul a decent amount of materials. It can also keep water in its hump, so you can drink out of it, and it's decently strong too, so it's really good in the early game and maybe some of the mid game. Kind of useless at the later games though, so I'm gonna have to just have it in the middle, but early game, this thing is an amazing tame. Definitely worth getting. Number 27 is the Andrewsarchus. This one is found on Fjordur, and it's pretty good. It's good early game because you don't need a saddle to ride it, and it's not the hardest thing to tame in the world. You do need honey though, I think, and it's pretty strong, but once you get late game, you could build a turret saddle for it, and you could just maul stuff to death with the turret, which is also pretty dope. Number 26 is the Phasolasuchus from Scorched Earth on Ark Ascended, and this thing is pretty good. The only annoying thing is it's kind of a late game tame because of how difficult it is to tame, but once you do get it, it's pretty strong, and it can also gather a ton of flint. It can swim in the sand, and you can kind of like suffocate things with the sand whirlwind thing. It's a pretty cool creature, but the reason I'm going to have to put it lower is because it's a really late game tame. If it were an early game tame, I might rank it higher. Number 25 is the new Shastasaurus, exclusive to the Center Ascended, and this one's pretty dope, but there is some problems with it. The main problem I have with it is it's super late game. You have to be level 100, and you have to defeat a boss to get the tech replicator to unlock it, because it is a tech item to build the saddle. I mean, you could tame this thing without tech, but then you won't be able to ride it or use the submarine saddle, which is the main function of it. So that to me brings it down. I think it'd be way higher if you were able to get this thing without needing tech tier. But anyway, besides that, I mean, it's pretty cool. You have a submarine. I've always wanted a submarine in Ark, so having this is awesome. You can put creatures in here and move them, and it's pretty dope as well. The Shastasaurus has tons of different abilities you can use. It has the ability to basically like these same thing as like the tech binoculars as well, so you can kind of like search things out. It's got lots of stuff it can do, and it's pretty cool, but since it's like so late game, I can't really put it super high, so it's just gonna be here. Number 24 is the Ravager. This is a fantastic early game tame on Aberration. It's pretty quick, it can ride on zip lines, and has weight reductions on all kinds of different materials. It's also pretty strong as well, and has a bleed attack. This thing is a great early game tame, and you can use it for all kinds of stuff on Aberration. And all the other maps it's on, it can be pretty useful in those too. And number 23 is the Void Rim. The Wyvern, or the Tech Wyvern for Genesis Part 2, and it's not really as good as any of the other Wyverns, mainly because its breath doesn't do any damage. This one's more of a PvP Wyvern type thing, mainly because the like breath attack does a stun instead of damage, so that's why it's going to be ranked lower. Number 22 is the new Pyro main. This one is like the Shadow main, but I mean, it's on fire. It can do fire damage, and it's pretty strong. This one's still newer, so it's kind of harder to rank, but I feel like it'd be great for caving or just traveling around because it's really fast. It can do like that fire leap thing, meaning it can jump super high. I think this one's a pretty great one all around. Probably more useful in PvP, but could still be useful for caving and stuff like that. So I think 22 is a good spot for it. Number 21 is the Oasisaur, the Scorched Earth creature. And this one's always kind of hard to rank because it has so many crazy abilities that make it sound like it should be number 1, or it sounds kind of overpowered, but in practice they're not super overpowered. First off, it has the ability to basically bring things back to life if you have their souls, which is pretty good. And then it can also like make resources on its back. Depending on which Oasisaur you get, they have different like pre-resources that will basically just make themselves over time, which is always just great to have some extra resources around. Its pool gives you like different buffs and stuff. And if you put crops on here, you don't need fertilizer, which is great for me because I'm always lazy and don't feel like fertilizing my crops. This thing also, the annoying thing is you have to feed it potted plants to keep it alive, which can be kind of annoying, considering it's not the easiest to get those, even though it's not the end of the world. I think this thing is good here. I mean, it's a really late game, but the abilities it has are kind of crazy, so I think it's pretty good. And number 20 is the Karkanos. This one is on Aberration and a few other maps as well, but this one is pretty great. It's great for travel because it can jump super high. It also has the ability to grab things with its claws, so you can grab 2 creatures, and you can even move creatures of your own with them, as well as it's pretty strong overall. I like using this thing to get rock drake eggs, which of course rock drakes are super useful, so being able to get those a lot easier is great. Number 19 is the Tropionathus. This one was introduced with Crystal Isles, and this one's a pretty great one as well. Its main ability is it has the jetpack saddle, so you can boost insanely fast, so you can actually get around the map really quickly. So it's one of the fastest creatures in the game, and of course there's been creatures that have been faster added since, but this one's still pretty good. Number 18 is the Deinonychus. This one is like the fluffy raptor, and it's pretty great. It gets a pack bonus, it's super strong, and it does a bleed attack to bosses, which is insane, making it one of the best boss fighting creatures in the entire game, which is why it's ranked so high on the list. Number 17 is the Mantis. This one is also great. It's really strong. You can use it for harvesting stuff and for killing stuff because you can put different tools in its hand. Basically, you can just set it up to how you like it and then basically harvest any thing you want, or you can kill anything you want with swords and stuff. You can even put armor in the hand slot to give it extra armor as well. This one is an awesome one. Number 16 is the Reaper. This one is not as useful in PvE. It's probably more useful in PvP, but this is still so awesome. I think this is probably the highest I could rank it. It is really strong. You can use it to kill pretty much anything you need on Aberration, but it's also great at traveling too, as you can jump insanely high with it. And you could even use it like in the Rockwell boss fight if you wanted to. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I said, it's going to be hard to fight for this one in PvE, but I think it is still pretty great, and I definitely like using this one. So I'm going to have it at number 16. Number 15 is the Gotcha. I probably could have ranked this one higher. I don't use this one as much as I probably should, but I'm still going to rank it pretty high. Mainly the ability it has is it basically produces resources for you with crystals. You can basically get the resources you want from them, and it can even give you good loot too. So this thing is really insane. Number 14 is the Astrodelphus. I think this one's good for PvP and PvE. The main PvE uses is it's insanely fast. It's like the Tropio jet saddle on steroids, as it goes super fast, and you could also use it underwater too. So you have a land and flyer creature, or water and flyer creature. It's also got like the rockets and the lasers and all that kind of stuff. So this one is just a great travel mount and great for killing stuff. It's quite interesting. It's literally like riding on the back of a jet, so having like a jet style creature in Arc, it's quite interesting, but it's really cool too. I definitely like this thing, and it's pretty useful in both PvE and PvE. And number 13 is the Crystal Wyverns. They're like the Wyverns, but smaller. They don't really have as much health, but they do have cool abilities. I think they're a little bit faster, at least the Tropical Crystal Wyvern is. They all have their own unique things, and they're unique to Crystal Isles. I think these ones are pretty great. Obviously, I do love the Wyverns. You'll see later how high I rank the normal ones, but these ones are pretty fun versions of the regular variants. Number 12, I have the Tech Strider. This thing is completely overpowered. It's the best resource harvester in the entire game because it can get every resource with its harvesting module thing, and then pretty much just get them instantly. This thing also can like transfer your resources from a tech dedicated storage, and has weight reductions on them too with the saddlebags. This thing's amazing. Number 11 is the Desmodus. This is one of my favorite flyers in the game. It's fantastic. It's really fast. It has the ability to dive. It can also get blood packs from killing stuff, which is a unique ability that's actually pretty useful. And then you can also make these sanguine elixirs, which makes it to where when you're taming something and you use one, it gives it 30% taming. So having those is also super useful, and this is the only creature that can make it and the only way to get them. So that also brings this thing up quite a lot. But it's not the best of the flyers. There are some ones that are higher on this list. I do definitely like the Desmodus though. It's got to be one of my favorite flyers. And number 10 is the Cinemacrops, the highest ranking shoulder pet. I mean, this one is just insane. It literally makes you a jetpack. It's like an early game tech suit. You can fly around, you can glide. It'll save you from pretty much 90% of any danger in the game. As if you're getting attacked, you can just fly up and glide away. So, I mean, how can you not rank that insanely high? You don't have to have a creature like on standby to ride. You can just start flying just by holding the spacebar or X button, whatever. Number 9 is the Maywing. This thing is fantastic. It glides, but it glides at like Mach 10, so you can go across the map at insane speeds. I'm pretty sure it's like the fastest creature in the entire game, and that's why I love it so much. You can get around the map super quickly with this thing, and you can get it on maps like Fjordur, Lost Island, and Genesis Part 2, so it's not just on Gen 2 as well. So this one's pretty great. It also has the nursing abilities too, so you can use this thing for imprinting baby creatures, which is always useful. Number 8 is the Snow Owl. This is another one of my favorite flyers, and the reason I think I like it more than the Desmodus is it has some more useful abilities, like the ability to freeze things around it and heal them. It also has thermal vision, which is a nice detail, but it also has the dive. It's kind of like an RG, but faster, and I like this thing quite a bit. I think I'd probably rank it higher than most people would. I don't know, I really like the Snow Owl, and I think it's worthy of being a number 8. But at number 7 is the Magmasaur. This one is really strong. It's really powerful. I think you can use like the Dragon Boss fight too, and you don't take fire damage. But its main use is it gathers metal. It's the best metal gatherer in the game, and metal is one of the most useful resources in the entire game. So obviously this one's going to be quite high. Number 6 is the Bloodstalker. This one, I mean, it just turns you into Spider-Man and you can swing around, which is pretty awesome, but you can go super fast. If you know how to use this thing, you can go at insane speeds across the map. I mean, it's pretty much essential in Genesis Part 1 because there's no other flyers that you can use on that map. So it's pretty great. On other maps, maybe not as useful, but it's still really fun to ride around on, and you can still get around pretty fast on other maps as well. Number 5 is the Shadowmane. This is one of the best creatures in the entire game. It's pretty overpowered. I mean, it's really strong. It does insane damage. You can jump super high. It's great for travel. It can swim underwater, making it one of the best underwater creatures in the game. You can also use it for boss fights, making it a fantastic boss fighting creature for the Gen 2 boss fight and Genesis Part 1 boss fight as well. You could probably use it in any boss fight, really. I mean, this thing is fantastic. It does pretty much anything you need it to do, and it's got so many abilities that it's just insane. And number 4 is the Mana Garmer. This one is really fun to ride around on. You can go super fast, you can run around, zip around pretty much everywhere you need to. It doesn't really have much stamina, which kind of sucks, but other than that, I do love this thing. It also has the Ice Breath, which can like freeze things in place and kill them pretty quickly. Every map that has these things, I usually go for them because I just love riding around on them. They're so much fun. At number 3 is the Griffin. This one is another fantastic flyer. This one, I mean, it was the first one to introduce the dive, and it's still one of the best dives that you can do. You can go at insane speeds, and if you do it right, you can do insane damage if you dive and then hit something at the right speed. It's got some pretty decent overall stats with stamina and weight. You also have a passenger saddle too, which, I mean, I don't know if I use it that much, but it's still a nice little touch. The Griffin is one of the coolest creatures in the game, though, and is definitely one of my favorites, so I think number 3 is a good spot for the Griffin. But at number 2, we have the Rock Drake. I mean, this one's essential on Aberration, maybe not on other maps, but it's still so fun to ride around on, and it's really strong too. It's got tons of weight and stamina, so you can use it for utility, but you can also glide around super quickly. You can latch to walls, climb on them. You could go invisible. It can also sense Reapers, which is pretty cool. This one's fantastic. But in number 1 is the Wyvern. This might not be the best DLC creature, but it is my favorite creature in the game, so I'm going to be ranking it at number 1. It is basically riding on a dragon, after all. Now, every time I say that, I always get comments correcting me. I know it's not a dragon, but it basically is, so just let me have my moment. But it is really cool. You have the elemental version, so you can like breathe lightning or fire or poison or whatever. The ice one too. I mean, it's pretty dope. They also have really great stats as well. I mean, they got weight, they got stamina, so you can use these things for utility, bring like metal and like just hauling a bunch of resources, as well as killing pretty much anything you need to. You can even use these for some boss fights as well, like the Manticore boss fight. Wyvern's got to be my favorite creature in the game. But that is my ranking of all of the DLC creatures in Ark Survival Evolved and Ark Survival Ascended. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and also subscribe. Thanks for watching, and bye.